you're on Initiative Africa. My name is Asha Sampath. Welcome to this new edition of your weekly magazine featuring Africa on the move through smart innovations and initiatives that work. Let's get on with the show with our top stories today. We meet with one of the great voices of Africa, the Gabonese singer Adriana Bignagni-Lesca, the first West African who took the stage at the Opéra Garnier in Paris this summer as Juno, the wife of Zeus. She takes us behind the scenes, a celebration of music, theatre and dance.
This is it. You are on the Garnier stage. You realize that? It's one of the most coveted stages in the world, and a young African woman on that stage. But can you believe it?
An innovative collective and an increasingly renowned electronic music festival. A winning recipe for Nyege Nyege, currently igniting the youth of Africa and elsewhere in Uganda for its 6th edition.
These evenings have grown and the whole public has gravitated around them. It has formed a collective in the broader sense, in the sense that everyone supports each other.
Saving endangered sea turtles on the beaches of the Congo is the mission of the NGO Renatura. It has come to an agreement with the fishermen to save our ocean's elders.
As the nets are actually large meshes, the turtles are easily captured. Then, of course, we release them and call Renatura for that, and they make sure the turtles are released.
Nyege Nyege is an irresistible and sudden urge to dance in Luganda, a language of the Bantu family. But it has also become the name of a particularly creative music collective created in 2014 in Uganda. It has cradled African artists who are now recognized around the world while giving birth to a renowned festival of electronic music, which is currently being held about 100 kilometers from Kampala. This summer, the festival made a very remarkable first stopover in Paris. We had been to meet the organizers and artists who bring this African underground music to life. Take a listen.
A new cultural space north of Paris, an audience in trance, and all the energy of the East African musical underground. It was an unprecedented meeting this summer between the Nyege Nyege festival, which had just arrived from Kampala, and Parisian electro music fans. First real European tour for a young festival born in 2015, which has become a great reference on the continent in only a few years and which aims to become popular among the diaspora who came in great numbers.
It's the first time I've come to the Nyege Nyege festival. Frankly, I'm very happy with the festival. I say thank you very much to the Nyege Nyege collective and the artists. I'm very happy that it is the first time.
Like Hassan, a Sudanese who arrived in Paris 4 years ago, festival goers are not mistaken. Far from being just another festival, Nyege Nyege is first and foremost a collective of artists. It was born in Kampala in the wake of small parties organized after film screenings.
These evenings have grown and the whole public has gravitated around them. It has formed a collective in the broader sense, in the sense that everyone supports each other, encourages each other. And we have a creative space that allows for risk-taking, which we don't often find. Sometimes you have to pay to put your music on the radio, pay to put your music on television.
The East African alternative musical culture is African and in a quite precarious state immediately finds its interest here. A recording studio and an artist residence attract talents, and many flocking to this residence are women. The collective is giving wings to a whole generation of female DJs and rising stars, such as Turkana.
I think for me the most interesting thing is like the community or the process of learning, like being surrounded by so many different artists doing different sounds, and like meeting them is so inspirational because you get to listen to patterns you've never listened to, but also it's like an exchange kind of thing. Everybody inspires the other person, so it leads to a new creation of like new sounds, I guess, because so Nyege has a studio back home, and there's so many artists like from Kenya, Congo, Uganda, Sudan. So everybody's like doing something different, but in the same space, and you could collaborate. So it's like your mind automatically just gets inspired being surrounded by artists.
A collective spirit prevails in the creative process and the mixing of different influences from contemporary sounds to the African musical tradition.
I just create different stuff. I can create techno. So like as an artist, you leave your brain and then you create. But I also think, I think it's important for like African artists to like reference to traditional patterns or traditional sounds, let's say, sample them and make like a new sound. Because I mean, it's important to represent who you are. But I don't think it should be limiting to your creativity. You know, so I think as personally I do both of it. Like I do tracks where I'm actually inspired and I'm sampling like sounds like from Pojulu or like East African sounds. I sample them, and then I also create tracks where I'm not like I'm just working with whatever, you know. So yeah, I think the duality of both is incredible. Yeah.
We don't want to present an image of a certain Africa. We want to decompartmentalize the idea that we can have of Africa through a super diverse proposal. So we can go from traditional music to metal to hip-hop to music from South Africa, Mali and Egypt to surprise people so that they say, well, the idea I had of Africa was small.
Pushing back the African cliché and propelling the diversity of music talents and audiences, the arrival of the Nyege Nyege festival has ticked all the boxes. The idea is to create spaces of freedom where everyone can meet, and Nyege Nyege is exactly that. It is exactly a space where everyone can meet. So all communities, all ages, all origins. All this does not prevent Nyege Nyege magic from spreading but also remaining grounded. Behind it, there's also the creation of labels, the search for recognition and lucrative opportunities for the collective of artists. They have already 250 representations per year all over the world. Clearly, the Nyege Nyege ecosystem needs to assert itself out of Africa, and Paris already seems to embrace their cause.
In a very different repertoire, it's time to meet a great African artist, the mezzo-soprano Adriana Bignagni-Lesca. She chose the path of lyrical singing, which led her from Libreville to Gabon, to France, to the Bordeaux Conservatory, then to the greatest international stages. This summer she set foot on stage for the first time at the Opéra Garnier in Platée, a lyrical comedy composed in 1745 by Jean-Philippe Rameau. She shared about her first steps on stage and some behind-the-scenes anecdotes with Laurent Soustras and Thierry Schiller.
Adriana Bignagni-Lesca, welcome on Initiative Africa. This summer you made your debut at the Opéra National de Paris in the lyrical comedy Platée. How did you experience this moment when you stepped onto the stage of the Opéra Garnier for the first time?
Bonjour. Hello. Well, at the time I didn't realize because we were in the middle of rehearsals at the Paris Opera. I didn't pay any attention during the dress rehearsal, but it was on the day of the premiere that I said to myself, this is it, you are on the Garnier stage. Do you realize that? It's one of the most coveted stages in the world, and a young African woman on that stage. But can you believe it? And I was proud of myself for being there. And here on the day of the premiere, I realized that I was on the stage and living the moment.
You play Juno, the wife of Jupiter, who is quite angry. This is a challenging role for the mezzo-soprano that you are. What were the features of the character?
On va dire que oui et non.
Well, I'll say yes and no. It's a bit challenging because in terms of range, I was a bit afraid that it was a little high for me.
Un peu haut pour moi, parce que moi je suis mezzo-contralte.
Because I'm a mezzo contralto, but in terms of character, I understood why I was chosen. Because with my somber voice tone, I was able to give character in many ways, but mostly vocally and on stage.
And
the difficult part with Juno, I think, it's the waiting. The wait is really long. And when she arrives in the third act, you have to be on top of your game to perform this anger. And it's not easy to keep that energy all the way through when I'm not singing in the common stage, and actually provide that crucial moment when she needs to be accountable, when she needs to be told where her partner is.
And it's also a lot of stress to deal with during these first acts.
C'est ça. Le stress, alors,
yeah, that's it, the stress. In the beginning, it was a bit stressful, but now I've managed to find ways of coping. So I completely ignore the music, even if I watch TV while the production continues, and I try to do all the administrative stuff on my phone. I really forget about it.
Voilà, sur mon téléphone, je fais vraiment abstraction. Et au moment de l'entracte,
and at the time of the intermission, I refocus and I try to motivate myself physically because my body is getting cold. It's normal, and I try to warm up to be ready. And now that's it, I'm starting to really get into the skin of Juno. I mean, I have to incarnate Juno and not the other way around. It's not the role that takes over me, but I take over the role to better perform and understand the role.
You were born in Libreville in Gabon, and you started singing at an early age. Why were you attracted to singing?
C'est un peu compliqué parce que l'attirance pour le chant.
It's a bit complicated because of the attraction for singing. It's different because I didn't know opera. Singing is really something that helped me to succeed. And I like that rhythm and the voice.
Et j'aimais ce rythme, le rythme et la voix. Je m'y suis accrochée et j'aimais chanter tout le temps.
I always loved to sing, to the point where I told my parents that I wanted to do it for a living. But not just to sing, I wanted to play the piano and accompany the young children in the choir. So I wanted to be a children's choir director. And one thing led to another, of course, and my path was changed when I came to the Bordeaux Conservatory of Music, which surprised me enormously.
Qui m'a énormément surprise.
How were those years of learning and discovery like in the Lowe choir?
C'est vrai que la polyphonie, ça m'a énormément interpellée.
Polyphony indeed appealed to me enormously. I loved to hear several voices mixing different colors. The way they brought African music into polyphony too.
La musique africaine aussi en polyphonie. Et avec le temps aussi, avec mes recherches.
And with time, with my research, I also discovered that it was almost the same thing for the Pygmies. It's a bit like, I don't know if it's Basque songs, but with a voice that does.
Avec une voix qui fait. Et avec le mélange de sons un peu.
And that, with a mixture of sounds that are a bit bluesy from back home in Gabon, it gives a quite different mix that I really like.
Énormément et découvrir aussi une musique plus ou moins classique.
And also discover a piece of music, or less classical music, well, say French variety opera music. Well, it wasn't opera music, it was French choral music, with a lot of polyphony.
Avec énormément de polyphonie, et ça, c'est ce que j'ai vraiment adoré, et je pense que ça.
And that's what I really loved, and I think it stimulated me enormously to set up my children's choir.
D'enfants.
And this children's choir, did you set it up?
Oui, je l'ai monté pendant 4 ans.
Yes, I set it up for 4 years thanks to my father, who was the headmaster of a primary school at the time. And I was able to set up this school.
On avait fait je crois que c'était une espèce de festival avec l'UNESCO.
And then we did, I think it was a kind of festival with UNESCO.
Et ils étaient très très surpris parce que moi-même,
where we presented this choir, and they were very, very surprised because I like to compose. I like to compose and write.
En œuvre un peu enfin, je leur donnais mes œuvres.
So I gave them my works, and we tried to work with the children.
avec les enfants.
Welcome to the second part of our show. We head for the Congolese coast, which is very hospitable for sea turtles. They're home to 4 out of the 7 species listed in the world. But these protected reptiles that have inhabited our oceans for more than 150 million years are threatened with extinction due to poaching or fishing. Fortunately, the local NGO Renatura has been working since 2005 to save them thanks to an original solution. Our journalist Jean-David Mihamley and his cameraman Brice Kinou witnessed the rescue of sea turtles trapped in the nets of fishermen in the Loango Bay near Pointe Noire. Take a look.
We are on the beach of Loango near Pointe Noire, and this is a sea turtle known as the green turtle. It was accidentally caught in the fishermen nets. Before being released at sea, employees of the Renatura NGO, who have the mission of the protection of marine turtles in Congo, take the measurements of this marine species. Exhausted, the sea turtle struggles to move. The 50 meters that separate the sea turtle from the sea seem endless for the poor animal. Fortunately, Jean-Félix Chibinda from Renatura is there to give the animal a nudge to find the sea at last, an operation that has become quite common for this employee of Renatura NGO.
Last week I had at least 12 in my nets, of which 3 were dead. This week I only had 2, including a dead one again. During the month we can get 50, more or less. Sometimes less than 10, depending on the catch of the fishermen.
For the fishermen, the capture of sea turtles is quite simply accidental.
We want to catch fish, and during the sardinette, we fish right here on the shore. But here on the shore, it's where the turtles come out of the water to eat the grasses and the fish, all that, but mostly grass. When they arrive, there are nets and they get caught. As the nets are actually large meshes, the turtles are easily captured. Then, of course, we release them and call Renatura for that, and they make sure the turtles are released.
Renatura is an NGO under Congolese law created in 2005. It has signed partnerships with the inhabitants of Loango Beach. They compensate for any damage caused by the capture of sea turtles, including tearing of nets, compensations that actually delight the fishermen.
When we accidentally catch sea turtles, our nets are damaged, and then we call Renatura, who compensate us by replacing the nets because of the damage caused by the turtles. So it's all good. In fact, when we started releasing turtles all over the Congolese coast, we signed an agreement with the fishermen. The agreement stipulates we should provide the material to mend the nets that have been ripped by the sea turtles. So when a fisherman lets us know when he catches a turtle, our agent, who is permanently in the area, looks at the damage to the nets. We then estimate the extent of the damage caused, and our agent then calculates the number of fishing spools to give to the fisherman. The fisherman can then come to us to receive the spools that allow him to repair the damage caused by the turtles.
Interestingly, the Congolese coasts are very hospitable to sea turtles due to the abundance of nutrients such as algae, mollusks, shrimps, and fish, among others, as well as their rocky habitat. A real nursery for marine turtles, which already houses 4 out of the 7 species of marine turtles listed in the world.
In fact, the Congo is home to 4 of the 7 species of marine turtles that exist worldwide. And all year round in our waters there's a constant stream of the various species. Sea turtles are migratory, which means they travel long distances between their breeding grounds and their feeding waters. The Bay of Loango, where we are right now, is where green turtles spend most of their time in their juvenile stage, mainly to feed. There are also leatherback turtles, and this is the world's #1 site right now that's home to so many leatherbacks. It used to be in French Guiana, but today the trend's reversed. It's not a fairy tale, you know. Congo is home to many sea turtles that come here either to feed or to breed, and that is particularly related to the wealth of biodiversity, the marine biodiversity that can be found here and which is part of their food chain. Another reason is the nature of the beaches around the Congolese coast, which easily allow turtles to climb and then nest and reproduce here.
Yet, a threat looms on the horizon. The number of captures of turtles that come to the Congolese coast continues to decrease. From thousands, 5 years ago it has averaged 300 in recent years. Perhaps the industrial activities with oil exploitation and the extension of the port of Pointe-Noire have something to do with it.
And now let's get back to our guest, the lyrical artist Adriana Bignagni-Lesca, for the second part of her interview. She tells us about her beginnings and the cultural gap between classical music and Africans that she would like to help bridge. Let's hear more from her.
Adriana Bignagni-Lesca, your vocal training brought you to France at the age of 18. Was it a family choice? Did you already know that opera singing was your future?
Non, du tout. Lorsque je suis arrivée, c'était vraiment pour apprendre à jouer du piano.
No, not at all. When I came here, it was really to learn to play the piano and to improve my skills, and then to follow the second option, to be a choir director especially for children. And during my piano audition, I asked, as there was a free musical piece, a compulsory piece and a sight reading, I asked the conservatory director, is it possible for me to play and sing the free musical piece simultaneously? He said to me, well, it's never been done before, but why not? And then he was interested, saying, oh, but instead of doing the piano training, well, you're old, it would be good to enter the singing and lyrical art department. It was already the first time that I had heard that word. What is it? Also, he explained to me, it's a way of singing. It's another way of approaching the voice. And on the day of the audition, he asked me to come and sing exactly, and that's what I did. Of course, when I arrived, I heard extraordinary voices, but they were soaring.
Bien entendu, lorsque j'arrive, j'entends des voix extraordinaires, mais qui montaient à des sommets. Pour moi, c'était j'ai pris peur.
Really high. For me, it was like I got scared. I was really scared. I said to myself, I've entered a madhouse. But really, it was very funny at the time. But as I experienced it, it was really terrifying. And the director reassured me by saying, it's a way of singing, you shouldn't be afraid. And it teaches you to know your voice. And that intrigued me. I said to myself, why not? Because for me, I hadn't forgotten the option of being a choir master. And I told myself to be a choir master, you must learn a little about the voice. And I thought, why not? Why not? Let's do it. And I sang with my eyes closed, and they took me on. Because I didn't know anything about it, and then I did my training until I got my diploma.
Et après, j'ai fait ma formation jusqu'à avoir mon diplôme.
After your training in Bordeaux, you won a series of roles and awards, and this first prize in the opera category of the first edition of the International Competition for Great African Opera Voices this spring. Is this a breakthrough for opera artists from the continent?
Alors, on va revenir en arrière.
So let's get back, because I had already won the first prize of the Armel Opera competition in Budapest, where I had my first role. My first big role was a small role actually, the Angel of the Bizarre. It's a contemporary role that I did in Pisa in Budapest, and after that there were other competitions.
Bon, c'est vrai que sur le concours de
The Africa Opera competition is indeed a good initiative, because Africa is always sidelined in this field.
Toujours à l'écart l'Afrique dans ce milieu, donc j'ai tenté le coup.
So I gave it a try, and surprise, I was the winner. Well, that was a good point, even if I said to myself at the beginning, I was just doing it to make myself known to my African community. Because it's a bit sad to say it, I've often been a bit incriminated by my African colleagues. It's not to condemn, but it's my reality. And I'm told quite often, you chose the white culture, stay there. And in white culture, it's a bit complicated. You are African. Can you be trusted in this environment?
Du coup, le combat est très difficile.
So the struggle is very difficult, and the support is not necessarily like my colleagues. When there's a person who represents herself in a production where there's a lot of encouragement, I'll take an example for a French woman, a French opera singer, who is going to perform. People will say it's normal, it's in your culture.
C'est normal, c'est dans votre culture, mais on s'encourage énormément.
And there's a lot of encouragement. But in my community, it's very difficult. And I would really like to see this change. It's not just opera, of course, but we chose this path because we also fell in love with it. But that doesn't mean we have to deny our brothers and sisters. It's not because we are in this environment that we forget who we are. They should understand that too, that they shouldn't reject us like that. And it's very hard to live with because we're neither accepted on one side nor accepted on the other. And it's a very difficult struggle to say to ourselves, well, with time, things will be done, hoping that the mentality will change.
Precisely about the transmission of culture. Do you see it helping encourage the love of classical music and opera in Africa, particularly among young people?
Alors, j'encouragerais volontiers.
So I would encourage strongly, but not only lyrical, I would also promote African music, even in the opera world. And I hope, my biggest dream is to see African work performed in an opera house, such as the Opera Garnier or other opera houses. And I know that African composers compose things that can be in partnership with Western productions. And I would even find this a very good point, an enormous breakthrough. And I encourage them to come, encourage young people. If this is what they really want, go for it and work very hard.
In the training of aspiring African artists, what advice would you give to a young African singer today? How to get training?
I would advise, given that it's not our culture, at least in lyrical singing, to train, of course, in countries that train or already have this well-established culture. It's a bit complicated, I know financially it's very difficult. Unfortunately, there are very few African singers in this field. In any case, it's starting to happen. What I hope is that people who succeed or have this possibility of teaching also go and teach in Africa so that the costs of training are lower to help those who wish to learn, so that they can help Africans who don't have the means to come. And open a conservatory or to form a partnership with conservatories here or with teachers here. Who go to Africa for a while, perhaps with the UNESCO, to be able to train young teachers or young singers for, let's say, basic singing.
Pour on va dire, le chant de base. Mais de toute manière, à un moment donné, ils seront obligés quand même.
But in any case, at some point, they will have to come, and it would be good in the form of a scholarship for a number of years to learn how to know their voice and sing with their voice to the West and follow it anyway.
Je pense que c'est important quand même de suivre cette formation et de quand même venir en Occident et de suivre cette formation, malgré tout.
And would you be excited about this mission of transmission?
Oh, mais bien sûr, c'est dans mes projets.
But of course, it's because it's in my plans and projects. And of course, in general, I am often asked not to talk about it. But I also give lessons and can help young Africans enter a training course. And I strongly encourage them to go to an institution like a conservatory or a music school in the West to train and to have a solid foundation.
Adriana Bignagni-Lesca, thank you.
Merci.
Well, that's it. Initiative Africa is over for today. You can, of course, find Adriana Bignagni-Lesca's interview and the replay of our programs on our website, africaonair.com. And, of course, you can also follow us on our social media channels. Feel free to share, like, and comment with the hashtag Initiative Africa. And don't forget, next week, same time, same channel. I'll see you again with a new edition of Business Africa. Have a great week, everyone, and goodbye.